Panthers in purple and white. Conference play is underway and High Point looks to defend their throne as last year's regular season champs. The road won't be easy though, as 8 other squads in the conference are looking to set fire to the jungle and keep the Panthers from winning that Big South title. We've got your coverage all season long. This is the Panther Pregame.
Hello everybody, and welcome into this week's installment of the Panther Pregame. I'm Anthony Evangelista alongside my good friend Brian Hanway, and we've got a great Big South Conference matchup between the Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs and your High Point University Panthers.
High Point's looking to add their 3rd win into a very competitive Big South Conference schedule coming up. They had a very strong win against Charleston Southern after a bounce-back game. They're a tough loss to UNC Asheville, and now they look to try to get it done tonight against the Gardner-Webb Running Bulldogs. Should be a really good game to watch.
Well, you know what? Both teams right now sit at 2-1, meaning that it's right now at the top of the conference. The winner of this game gets sole possession of first place in the Big South. So obviously a lot of stakes. It's still very early on, but nonetheless, it's always good to get a bit of an early lead there in the standings. Before we get into anything else, I actually had the pleasure of sitting down with head coach Alan Huss, where he was able to give me a bit of insight into the analytical view on the Panthers and basketball as a whole.
Now, you're a big fan of the analytics aspect of taking three-pointers and layups for the most part. Now, where did that come from in terms of where was that inspiration, whether it's other programs, other coaches, or just off your own head?
When I was at the University of New Mexico, and I think this was like 2014, maybe 14 or 15, I had a student manager that we worked with that was Deshaun Vaughn is his name, and he's like a data scientist now. But Deshaun put a book on my desk that challenged everything I thought I knew about the game of basketball. I've always had an interest in mathematics at a basic level, and when I read the book, everything made sense. And I'd never thought it just, if you kind of take the emotion and what you think you know from ESPN and from your own playing experiences, and you just simply reduce it to the mathematics behind it all, it makes sense in theory. And I think once you understand that, it's really easy to work backwards from when you know the answer.
Now, going off of that, in the event that something like that process wouldn't work in a game, would you ever deviate from that plan, or is it something that your team will live and die by?
Live and die is probably a little bit strong, but no, there's some deviation, especially if you look at situationally. Then there's some real deviation. Like if you look at the last 4 minutes, defenses typically don't break down. And so sometimes just getting a high value mid-range shot, like that shot might be high value in that moment because it's so much better than a turnover. And you're up against a pressure situation. It's difficult to go get a drive and kick extra past 3 in those situations. Officials tighten it up a little bit, maybe don't call things. It gets a little bit more physical. Defenses are really locked in and don't make catastrophic breakdowns in those situations. So sometimes you have to settle for what in the meat and potatoes of the game might be a lower percentage shot or a shot with lower expected shot value. It's just about understanding the situation, but also our guys understand the why. They can't tell you the exact maybe expected shot value of every shot, but they know which shots are more valuable than others, and we're always thinking about how we can go get a high value shot.
Thank you to Coach Huss for sitting down with me and taking an interesting look on the game we all love. One thing that I do want to hit on that we talked about that didn't make the final cut was that he really stressed the importance of spacing the floor. Now, I think that so far this season, High Point has done a pretty good job of spacing the floor and cutting it open to different three-point shooters, but for the most part, they really haven't been able to hit those shots the way that they typically do.
Yeah, and a lot of it has to do with just, getting into the sway of things. We're still really early on in the conference season, and I think they will prove upon that, as the season goes on. And to add one more thing on Coach Huss, he's a tremendous leader. There's no doubt about it. We've both talked to him in previous times. I've had the chance to talk to a couple players, and they're completely bought in. He has completely changed this program for the better good. And I'm extremely excited to not only see what the Panthers do this year, but hopefully for many years to come. We'll just have to wait and see.
It's been an absolute culture change. It's really made a really big difference. I mean, us coming in less than 2 years ago, High Point was really near the bottom of the Big South, and almost right away, they turned into a contender and a potential March Madness team. We'll see what happens at the end of this season, but nonetheless, the culture change starts with so many different things, including the Cabane Center. The Cabane Center has really been packed a lot this season, especially at the times that students are here on campus. And that's something that I think will be a very big impact for coming future. Speaking of the Cabane Center, we're going to head to the QC right now with our in-arena reporter, Alexa Eaddy, who's got a lot for us. Take it away.
Brian, Anthony, thank you. Good evening, Panther fans, and welcome to the electric Cabane Arena on this beautiful snowy Saturday night. Tonight, the Panthers will be facing the Gardner-Webb Bulldogs in an intense conference matchup. It hasn't gone unnoticed that the Panthers have had an outstanding transfer season for the 2024-2025 basketball season. Demarion Williams is one of those outstanding players. Faith Waltberg will give you more here in a second.
Demarion Williams has been a standout for High Point University this season. In a recent matchup against Carolina University, Williams hit a huge milestone, draining a corner three to secure his 1,000th career point in college basketball. Leading the Panthers with 15.2 points per game, Williams is leaving his mark at HPU after 2 seasons at Gardner-Webb, followed by 2 seasons at Texas Tech. Now back in the Big South, he's proving to be a key player for the Panthers. Keep an eye on him as he continues to make an impact. For Panther Pregame, I'm Faith Walpert.
Although Demarion Williams has had a long journey behind him at Gardner-Webb and Texas Tech, he will continue to make memorable movements at the High Point University Cabane Arena. Brian, Anthony, back to you in the studio.
Thanks for that, Alexa. We hope that you're enjoying the sights and sounds of the arena just moments before tip-off. Before we get into the game, we want to take a quick look at our very own Parker Crumrine and Reagan Smith, who sat down with HPU sharpshooter Trey Benham to talk about his faith in the team and how that translates onto the court.
Was a key component of the team's success last season. In 2024, he led the team in three-point percentage by shooting 37%. Benham discusses how the team can improve from last season.
For me personally, I'm just trying to be the best version of myself. I think the best thing for our team this year is to really get outside ourselves and just use, what happened last year as motivation. At the end of the day, I want to win a championship, and I think last year we fell short of it. And I realize that whenever you get caught up in yourself and get caught up in what you want, you're going to continue to fall short of a collective goal of winning a championship.
Benham discusses how the team is preparing for conference play.
I think the biggest thing is just to take one step at a time. I think the Big South, by the time we get there, I think we'll have a really good idea of where we're at. But as of right now, we're really just trying to focus on, today was our off day, and then tomorrow we'll have practice, and then just taking it one step at a time, playing our game, and not thinking too far into the future, and realizing that if we stick by our principles, stick by our disciplines that we practice every single day, by the time the big show comes, we'll just simply do the exact same thing we've already done, and the outcome will be for itself. So I think it's going to be one of those things where we'll have a really good opportunity to do really well in the Big South, but just stay present, take one step at a time, and it's all going to add up.
For Parker Crumrine, I'm Reagan Smith. Now back to you.
Thanks, guys. We now like to focus on the game at hand, with Gardner-Webb coming into the Cabane Center for the first time this season. I'm going to hand you over the driver's seat, Brian, as we head into today's keys for the game for a High Point victory.
Yeah, key number 1 is stopping Daryl Simmons. He has been unbelievable for the Run Bulldogs this year. Second in the Big South Conference in terms of points per game. He's averaging 16 points a game. The offense is simply going to run through him, and there's no questions asked about that. He has an amazing three-point shot, 43% from beyond the arc, and then a 96% free throw shooter. This guy can get to the rim, get buckets at the rim, can make it from all 3 levels. The next thing I want to get into is High Point needs to free up their 3-point shooters. Chase Johnston, Benham, DeMar, Keza, whoever you have, free them up, because this Gardner-Webb team lets up a lot of 3-point attempts. And if we can get those guys making those shots early and often, it's going to be a very good thing for the Panthers if they want to pull out with the win today. And finally, rebounding. They are dead last in the Big South Conference.
Say that again.
In terms of rebounding. Bodo and Kamani Hamilton, outstanding rebounders. Everyone else just averaging under 4 rebounds a game. Simon Hildebrand starting to, rise in that perspective. But, if they can get more production out of other guys in terms of rebounding, it's going to be a very dangerous team come March when we go to Johnson City, Tennessee for the Big South tournament.
Hey, you know what? And you mentioned Simon Hildebrand, who missed the first few games of the season with an injury. He's been a very solid backup center, something that High Point didn't really have last year. And it's really made an impact because, you have Bodo, who's always under the basket in the post, but now you add a center with a different element. He's got a 3-point shot. He's able to dribble the ball. And I think that the more comfortable he gets with this team around him and is more comfortable with his surroundings, I think come playoff time, he can make a very big difference. And then another thing that I wanted to hit on from your sharpshooters point is that today is actually Chase Johnston's birthday. The guard, happy birthday, Chase. We're hoping for a big game from you today. I mean, he's shown that when he gets going early, he stays hot. We saw it in the first game of the season against Coppin State. He went something along the lines of 8 of 9 from threes.
Unbelievable. I mean, if we can get that performance from Chase tonight, it's going to be an unbelievable game and another Chase Johnson legacy game, may I add.
Hey, hoping for some birthday magic for him there. Maybe he'll get his wish, but unfortunately, that's all the time we have for here on the Panther pregame. We're going to be sending you to the Cabane Center for Gardner-Webb versus your High Point University Panthers. I'm Anthony Evangelista alongside Brian Hanway. We'll see you guys next time here on the Panther pregame, and as always, roll Thurs.